Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here. So in today's video, we are going to see how we recreate this Nike embroidery logo growing on effect, right? So this is actually a video that was sent to me in my Instagram as a request by Birthright, right? And he was asking how I'll do something like this in Cinema 4D, right? And this is the original video. So this is embroidery growing on effect. I think this one was also done in Cinema 4D, but this is a short. I don't think it's a whole tutorial. So, and it was done by at 3D Art, right? So let's see how we will do something like this using Cinema 4D, right? So this is what I created, like I showed initially. And if I hide the scene, this is the real the scene viewport. So this is the thing playing without it being rendering, right? So let's quickly actually get into Cinema 4D and see how we will do this. So now I have a new scene open here, and I already have the Nike logo, which it was drawn in Illustrator, right? I just took the logo and redrew it. So I have the Nike logo and I've scaled it up a bit. If I bring in a cube, you can see it's quite bigger than the cube, so that you get a fair idea of the size of the logo. So let me delete the cube, and now let's start creating the embroidery effect. So let's go ahead and extrude our Nike spline we have here. So I'll come in here into our object and I'll create extrude, and I'll make the spline a child of the extrude object, and you can see it extruded our spline. So let's actually reduce the offset to maybe something like 20, which is fine in this case. Next is, if you check the original video that I played, you can see the pattern, like the orange part. You can see the pattern, it's slanted and it's going straight up, right? So we want to create that pattern of lines going up in that fashion. So to do that, I'm actually coming in here and I'll create a plane. I'll change the display the orientation to +Z, right? And then let's make the plane a little bit. Let's actually rotate the plane like 30 degrees on the banking, right? And now let's also change the display from garage shading to garage shading with light, so that we see what's going on in our object. And I don't like the work plane, so I'll uncheck the work plane so that everything stays clean. So now, like I said, we want the lines which is going up. So I'll select the plane, and first of all, let's create a boolean. So I'll create a bool, and I'll put the plane and the extrude, make it a child of the bool. You can see it's cutting out the Nike, but we want that part rather to show. So I'll select the bool, come to the object tab, and I'll change it from A subtract B to A intersects B. And you can see it's showing the Nike part. So now let's select the plane, and the height segments, let's set it to 0. And now let's increase our width segment to something like, let's set it to 70 for now, because we are recording and all of that. Let's set it to 70, and when we are done, we can actually bump it up. So now you can see we have the lines going the way we want, right? So all I'll do is now I'll come in here and I'll create a connect object, and I'll put the bool as a child of the connect object, and I'll select the connect and make sure world is unchecked, right? And now we've basically created the pattern which we're going to use to drive our embroidery. Next, we are going to create our embroidery, like the splines which are supposed to move over this part, and that's, we are going to use an arc. So I'll come into my object in here and I'll create an arc. I'll reduce the size to something like let's say 8, and then the end angle I'll set it to 180, right? So you can see we have an arc here, and end angle is set to 180. All right, and now let's go ahead and create a clone. So a clonal object, and make the arc a child of the clonal object. Select the clonal object and change the mode from grid to object mode. And now the object we want to clone on is the connect object we've created here. So I'll drag and drop the connect object to this field, and I can see the arc is being created on the surface of our Nike logo. So let's select the cloner again, change the distribution from surface. Rather, we want it to be cloning on the edges, right? So now let's choose edge. And now you can see every edge has an arc created. But what we want is the edges in the middle. We don't want the edges at the tip, right? At the end of the logo. So a way around it is, what I'll do is that I'll select the cloner, come to my effectors, and I'll add a plane effector. right? You are going to use plane effector to hide all the edges, the arcs on the edges. So I'll select the plane effector, come to perimeters, and now let's uncheck position and check visibility. So we are going to use this plane effector to affect the visibility of our clones. The ones we don't want all should be hidden. And how do we select the ones at the edge? And it's as simple as using the same spline that was used to create this particular Nike logo. So I'll select the plane effector, come to the field tab, and now let's come into our connect object here and select the Nike spline that we used initially. Drag and drop that Nike spline into the field tab of the plane effector, right? And you can see it's been added here. So let's close this one. And now let's select the spline that we've dragged in here, come down here to the layer controls, and change it from along and set it to radius, right? And now you can see what it's doing is that it's now selecting all the arcs at the edges and rather deleting the ones in the middle. We want it the other way around. So just select the remap tab and then just invert it. And now you can see all the arcs which are in the middle are the ones that are left, right? Even though some have been deleted, but for now, we are cool with it. If you check here, you can see these parts are not showing, but for now, we are cool with it. We'll deal with it. So to do that, to maybe control it a bit, we can actually select the field, select the layer, the spline that we added, and come to the layer tab, and you can adjust the radius of it. So you can see when we adjust the radius, reduce it, you can see some of them are coming back. So for instance, these ones are coming back. So we for now we are cool with the 6 centimeters. One thing we also have to make sure is that you see the orientation of our arc is not the way we want it. So let's come in here, select the arc, change the orientation from X, Y to Z, Y. And now you can see its orientation. It's something like it's actually trying to fit. I don't think it's actually working for now. Yeah, I think it's cool for now. We'll fix it later. So I like the way it is XZ. And now let's come into the cloner, the transform, and let's rotate it 90 degrees in here. So you can see now it's well rotated, and now it's all fitting on the arc the way we want it, right? The next thing is that in the cloner, again, we come to the object tab, and on here you can see we have scale on edge, right? And let's check scale on edge, and now you can see all the arcs have stretched to fit every edge that it is on, right? And that's basically it. So now we can go ahead and hide our connect object in here, and now you can see we have our spline or arcs following the pattern of the lines, right? So now from here going, we can simply open the connect, and now we can select the plane and increase the number of segments, right? The width segments. So somewhere it's a little bit procedural if you see. So you can see now we can increase the number of segments, and it can go as much as 1,000. That's the plane. And if you want it even more, you can make it editable and subdivide the plane so that you can get more splines if you want. So now we've basically created the middle part of the spline. So all we have to do is add a little bit of randomness to it, and that's just selecting the clone, come to our effectors, and I'll add a random effector to it. Select the random effector. Select the random effector, and let's come to the parameter tab, and let's reduce the all these ones. Let's set it like maybe 1 by 1 by 1, so that you have a little, and you can even add a little bit of rotation to it, maybe 1 by 1 by 1, like, just slide something to give it a little bit of variation. Even if you like, you can add a bit of scale to it, maybe 0.1 or something. Just play around with it to get a bit of randomness in it. And now we are quite close, right? Now to do the outline, so let's actually name this clone main. I'll call this one main. And now we are going to do the same thing for the outline, and that one is very, very simple. It's as simple as just coming in again, creating a clone, right? And I'll call this one outline, and then I'll create an arc, make it a child of our outline clone, and I'll reduce the size of the arc to something like 3. I think 3 will be fine for now. And let's increase the end angle to 180 as well. And now let's select the arc right? And the object you want to clone on is the same, how do you call it, the same Nike spline, right? So I can simply clone on. Let's actually create a copy of it. So I'll hold Control to drag and drop it to create a copy of it, and then I'll select the outline, clone, change the mode to object, and the object you want to clone on is this spline, and you can see it's created on it. And now let's increase it to maybe something like for some like 500 for now. Later we'll bump it up if we want to render. And now you can see it's creating the splines, but it's facing the other way around, right? Let's actually hide the main spline, and I can see this one is facing wrongly. So we have to select the outline, come to the transform tab, and let's rotate it. Actually, let's rotate it 180 on the banking, and now I think it's looking right. So now let's bring back the main, and now we've basically created this one as well. So can go ahead and also add a bit of randomness to it. In fact, let's increase the number of counts to 1,000 for now. And now we've created the two, right? So this is the first part of this whole tutorial. This is creating the whole splines and everything. Animating it will be the next part, which I'm actually going to explain, but it's slightly tricky. It's nothing complicated, but you have to I intentionally separated it so that you get it. But right now we've created this. You apply the same formula, like randomness to it. So maybe I can select the outline as well, come to the effector, and let's drag and drop in the same randomness, and you can see it's adding it, but I think it's too much. So let's see if we can reduce it in here, and also select the outline. We can bump it up more, 2,000, and it will be fair. It will be cool, right? So this is how you create the embroidery effect, right? And to render it, for now, originally I use Redshift. I'll show how I actually rendered it with Redshift, but let me quickly show you how you render it with Cinema 4D's inbuilt hair. So if I hit render, you can see nothing shows. But if I come in here and I create a new material, a new hair material, I can just apply it to the spline itself. So I'll apply it to the arc, and I'll double click on the hair material, and I'll change, make it one color. Let's choose this, maybe make it something orangish. Okay. And now the thickness to, let's set it to 1 by 1. And now let's create another copy. Hold Control to create another copy of this and apply it to the outline arc as well. And now if you hit render, you should see our splines being rendered, right? You can see there's specular and all of that in it, so it's too much. But we can select the thickness and reduce it. Maybe use this spline to reduce it. All right. Do the same thing for the arc. Maybe the outline, reduce it a bit, and maybe let's change the color of this one to maybe white. All right, that's something bluish. And let's render to see what we have. So you can see we have our Nike embroidery logo, and this is quickly just to show you how you do it with Cinema 4D. I'll later show how we will do it with Redshift, right? So now that we have it and everything is set, now the next step is how do we animate it, right? So let's see how we will animate them coming on. So to animate them coming on, I'm actually going to use the main one to show us for now. So let me hide, in fact, disable the outline clone, and now let me hide them. And now let's select the main one. So with the main one selected, what you are going to do is that, in fact, let me disable the main clone as well, and let's focus on the arc that we created. So it's this arc that we are going to use. We want it to animate on, like you see the one, it starts from like something like that, this way, and comes on, or we can let it start this way and come on, how we want it to come on, right? So we want two states, a state where it's 0 and a state where it's like 180. So we need two different arcs, right? So this, I'll call this one end the arc that we have. I'll name it N, and then I'll duplicate it. Hold Control to drag it and right under the N. And you can see it's created another copy. Let's call this one something like A. Right, and now let's set the A. Let's actually increase. Let's hide the N, and now let's set the A all the way to 180 as well, so that it will disappear. We don't have anything, right? And now, so we have two splines in there, A and N, right? And if we enable it and show in our main, you can see some have shown, some are not showing, right? So let's select the main and change the main mode from you see the clones here. Let's change it from iterate to blend, and now I can see what's happening. It's blending them smoothly. Like some are completely zero and some are like fully in operation, and some are in between basically. So that's what we want, and we are going to use an effector to control how it grows on. So to do that, all we have to do is select our main effect, the main clone, come to our effectors, and I'll choose plane, right? And I'll call this plane. In fact, let's name this plane. I'll call this plane hide clones or something. So this is the first plane, the plane that we use to hide our clones. And now this is plane to drive our animation. So I'll call plane animation, so that you don't get confused as to which is which. So now select the animation, the plane animation, come to the fields. In fact, let's select the plane animation. Make sure it's been applied to the main clone. So select the main clone, come to the effectors, and make sure our plane animation is added, which is in here. So we are fine. So I'll select the plane and come to down here in the parameters. I'll come down here, and you can see where it says modify clones. Let's set it to 100%. And now when it's 100%, it sees our the arc A, the arc named A, right? And if it's 0, it sees the arc which is where is it? Which is end, right? So something like this. So let's set it to 100% for now. And now let's select our plane effector. Come to the fields, and you're going to use field to control it. So now select our field, and I'll choose a linear field. And now if I select our linear field and start dragging it, you can see wherever it passes, it sort of brings it on, right? So that's basically how you use to animate it. But in the original video, what I did, it wasn't just, so I actually added a third version of the, how do you call it? Of this, the arcs, right? So the A, the end, and I added a third version, which sort of scales and, you know, comes down. So to do that, because I added a bit of scale and rotation and styles to it, I actually created a null and placed all of this in a null. So let's see how we will do that. So I'll disable the main, right? In fact, it can be on. Let's select the N, hold Alt, and create a null object. And you can see it automatically becomes a child of the null object, right? Let's do the same thing for the A. Hold Alt, click and drag, and it becomes a child of the null as well, right? And I think everything should be functioning well as well. So you can see everything still functions, but just that there's, I think, a bit of movement in it, which I think we should check. So I'll select the nulls and make sure it's not moving. Everything stays the same, right? For now, basically we've created it so that to create the third version, I'll hold Control, the A null, right? Actually, let's name the nulls A, and I'll name this one too as N, right? And now let's create a third copy, right? So I'll hold Control to click and drag this one, and we call it B. And with that one, you can see, let's disable the main once again. With that one, we don't see the arc, right? But we want it to show somewhere a little bit here. So this is the B in the lights. Let's show a little bit in here. And then let's scale it up, something like that. We want it to go up a little bit when it's at this stage, right? And now let's enable our main clone once again. So what you see is that if I select the linear field and it's playing through, it passes through all those three stages, right? But I think our spline is moved. Let's actually bring on our connect object so that you see. So what's happening is that because we are using it in the null and everything, there's a bit of changing, and that's because if I select the main, it's because of the scale on edge. So it means you have to make sure anytime we do any change, you have to make sure we adjust the scale on edge for it to fit properly, right? So let's first of all select the main and the B null, the arc under the B null. Let's select that one, and the code. Let's make the Y size something like 5, right? And now I think we are cool. So let's select the plane animation. One thing we have to also do is that with the plane animation, we actually forgot to uncheck position. So let's uncheck position so that it doesn't move our arc, right? All we have to do is to control the animation. That's why it was actually moving. So now that we have 3 states, so a state where it's completely 0, a state where it's now been scaled up a bit, and a state where it's where like the position the way we want it, right? But after everything is done, you can see if I move my keyframe, my linear field, you can see it's not fitting our edges like the way we want it. So all you have to do is select the main once again, and now adjust the edge. It can go more than 100% to the point where we feel like it fits. So I think 250 in this case should be found 240. Right, you just play around with it. I think 240, maybe 250 will be fine. And now let's enable our outline as well. You can see it fits perfectly. So now if we hit play, let's what else? Oh, no, we've not animated it. So if you select our linear field and move it, you can see it comes on basically. And you can use the same thing, this same plane to affect this same strategy to affect our outline. So we can create 2 different states. So let's do the same thing. I'll select this and I'll change the mode from clone to blend, and I'll create another copy of this arc. So I'll call this one 1, and I'll create another copy which I'll call 2, and I'll select the 1 and I'll set the state to the start angle to 180 as well, so that it disappears. Let's hide the main, right? And you can see it's 180 so that it disappears, right? Everything is working. Let's also reduce the number of clones to something smaller so that we can preview. Yeah, I think 1,000 will be fine. So you see we have it's blending from one state 0 and all the way up, right? So now that we have that created, can simply use the same plane effector, because it's also using how do you call it, the modify clones, right? So where is the plane effector in here, and see it's set to modify clone. So all we have to do is select the outline clone, come to the effector, and let's drag and drop in the plane animation, and it will actually, I think it should work perfectly as well. So if I select the linear field and move it, you can see it also disappears and comes on. So basically that's how I actually did the animation for the 2, and then from there I added bit of camera animation to it, right? I guess this video was helpful. Let me actually quickly dive into the original scene that I created in here. And like one thing I also did is I add a bit of randomness to it. So for instance, I select the plane effector, come to the fields, and instead of just the linear, I added a bit of random field to the linear field, and I changed the mode from max to overlay, right? So that it grows them slightly differently a bit. And I also even added a little bit of random movement to them by itself, like which gives it a little bit of random motion, right? So let's say the main one come into the effect. Let's actually get into the original scene so that I show what I did in there, and I'll quickly show how I actually use Redshift to render it as well. So now this is the original scene in here, and let's see. So what I did, if I actually select the outline, the edges, I'll disable it so that it will be fast. And now if I hit play, you can see this is it coming on. All right, and this is the main cloner, right? And you can see I have the same three nulls. So this is the N, the one which is completely zero, and this one which is in the middle, and I've scaled that one as well. You can see I've scaled it on the Y6, right? And that's how come it's like, so you come, if you get out of the camera and get closer to somewhere like here, so you can see it comes on, it grows a little bit taller, and now it smoothly goes down, right? And I've added, this is the random, the animation, the plane effector. If I come in here, you can see it's a linear field, and I've added random, and I've set it to overlay so that it gives it a bit of randomness. And after that, I add proper randomness to it here, in here. So I added this random to the main clone, which this one, and I adjusted, give it a little bit of randomness on the Y so that it moves whilst it's coming in, and it smoothly, I added a little bit of delay so that it can smoothly come in. So basically it's nothing fancy, just normal mograph stuff, and I played around with it. Now to get it rendered in Redshift, all I did is added my lights in here. You can see you have area light, 2 area lights and 1 dome light, right? And to be able to render it, I have a tutorial on here which shows rendering splines in Redshift. So all I have to do is to right click on my spline, and I come to render tags, and I added Redshift objects, and I choose I think cylinder. You can actually use hair, we choose either of these strips, hair, and any of them. So but I chose cylinder, so now it sees the arcs as cylinders, right? And I can apply Redshift, normal Redshift materials to your splines, and you can get it to render basically. So this is how I actually did this particular effects, right? And it's nothing fancy, and I hope this video was useful. You can use this same technique in several ways depending on what you want to do. You have to actually plan like the way you want it to do, because you can simply clone the axe on, if depending if the object is simple, something round, you can simply clone it on a round circle and you get the same effects. But if it's something intricate, then you have to probably find a system or something which works better, right? Like I said, I hope this video was useful and you've learned something from it. This is what we got at the final rendering. I hope if you have any question too, you can let me have in the comment section, and if it's something I can work on, I actually will try and see if I can do that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.